and we're going to talk about some of the biggest news stories and accomplishments in Anderson County for this year. I guess we can start at the beginning of the year. I mean, that was when the fences all went up around the county courthouse property, wasn't it? Or was that the end of last year?
That was the end of last year.
Okay.
So, yeah, the fences went up around the property behind the historic courthouse, and we're still dealing with a developer, and we like the developer, and I think he likes Anderson a lot, but construction costs are very high right now, and we're still playing around with exactly what the council wants to see there. And so that's still a process, and we are not in any hurry because the county owns that property. And as I've said many times on your broadcast, if it's not perfect, then we don't need to do it. And so that's where we are on that. Another thing, we began moving into the old Ryobi Singer / TTI building out on 28. We now have stormwater's located out there, solid waste is located out there, deputy administrators out there, and we have some other things out there. We finished the process of selecting a contractor and an architect to build our new maintenance facility for fleet management. So we're hoping to get that going here shortly so we can have an up-to-date modern fleet facility operations center. In the past, I mean, we've had people working on heavy equipment outside, and that's crazy. So that's one thing we're looking forward to that was done last year but will actually be built this year.
And that facility out there also is being used to train Tara County Tech students, and also is currently being used as a landing place for businesses, right?
It is, and we're also providing some warehouse space for existing businesses, and hopefully that's really going to come together this year. It's a long process, but hopefully we're going to get that done. Then eventually the sheriff will move there, and we will have a soft landing zone, small business incubator, training classrooms. We're trying to work out and have worked out an arrangement for some research and development operations affiliated with Tri-County Tech and the Department of Transportation to go out there. We have talked to the SCORE organization about providing in our small business incubator some seasoned businessmen who have retired and are willing to devote their time to help people get started. So all that's going on. All of that was started last year, but it's really going to be moving out smartly this year.
And part of that whole story too, we were able to sell the other piece of property and use it for...
Yes, in this deal we became the proud owners of the old Pickens TTI facility, and we had no use for it, and so we were able to sell it. And since we had absolutely nothing in it except some monthly maintenance, we're able to sell that facility and take that money and apply it onto projects about purchasing land up in Piedmont, South Carolina, to build an outdoor nature park / handicapped accessible kayak center. So we're in the process of closing on that property. That took place last year. We also have allocated money to do some more improvements at Dolly Cooper Park. On January 6th, we will have a town hall meeting in Powdersville to discuss how people in Powdersville want to see that park developed. You have one group who is strictly for youth sports, which, having been the president of the Pendleton Rec Center, I understand that fully. And then we have another group that wants to emphasize the nature part of it because it is on the beautiful Saluda River and we have lots of river frontage. So we're probably going to try to reach an accommodation to serve both groups because it is that large. So we've got that going on.
You got that nice field up there that was built too for football.
And we have that new football
stuff.
field, and I think Councilman Davis's priority this year is to try to get a ADA compliant baseball field so the group up there can have all of their baseball activities on that field. So we'll be looking towards doing that.
And Parks and Recreation have been a big emphasis this year.
It's been a huge emphasis. As a matter of fact, we're working now at Broadway Lake. We have taken down some dilapidated structures and we are working on the seawall there and at the facility we have there. So we're doing a lot of seawall work there going on right now. We're doing a lot of work at Green Pond, adding handicapped accessible parking spaces and making things a little bit looser over there. That work's going on right now. You were there a couple of weeks ago when we put the new bathroom in the East-West Parkway, and we're in the process of hooking that up. And then hopefully we're going to add a play facility out there near that, because you know we had one side of the East-West Parkway done, then the other side. So now we're filling in the middle on that, and that is a project that was contributed by Brian White, who helped us secure a large grant for that, and Councilman Greg Wooten, who helped us secure money for that. And so we've got those projects going on, so we're very happy about that finally coming to fruition. We
did a study of all the parks in the county too, and trying to figure out which ones are viable and which ones need to be.
Yes, we've done that study, and some that they said weren't viable, we've readdressed that and they are viable. And some other ones when nobody ever went to, and nobody ever knew where they were. And so we've closed a couple of those and have heard nothing from the community about it whatsoever, because nobody used it and nobody went there. So we've done that. I think one of the big things past year was TTI moving into their new facility at 81 and 85. And now they have the big sign up on the interstate, and now they've opened up their, in essence, outlet tool store. So that's bringing a lot of people into our area. We were also ranked number 8 on Airbnb rentals, so something's going on.
Well, that TTI, I think people that drive by there don't realize how big those buildings are and what's going on out there.
No, you really need to ride through that process. Those are all public roads, and almost 97% of that money came from grant money. So hopefully we're about to wind that up.
It's like Plus, 1.5 million square feet under.
Oh, it's more than that. And they're already in the process of doubling everything out there. So that's going on. And you know, those two front lots out there, as we've talked earlier, they're trying to find a hotel and a real nice restaurant to go out there on that land where the old truck stop used to be on 81, so we've got that going on. We're doing a lot of sewer work up in that area. Council approved that, so we're getting that done. We're still working on our sewer agreement with the town of Pendleton, the city of Clemson, and Anderson County. I think we've pretty much got a good working agreement on that will take care of the needs for Clemson, Pendleton, and the county for a long, long period of time. We completed this year the study on the jail. As a matter of fact, that was completed last week, and the cost right now, after council authorized that study, is $40 million if we're lucky, approximately 700 beds. You have that copy of that report, so I'm pretty sure you'll be posting that so people can look at it. And one thing that we wanted to let everybody know, and I hope you post this information and I gave it to you, that we invite everybody to come out there and take a tour of the jail. And you're going to have that contact information. So if you're curious as to why the county needs a new jail, or I've never been to the jail, what do they do at the jail, I think by putting those email addresses and those phone numbers, you can go find out for yourself. You can actually go look, and we'll be happy to provide a tour of that jail facility so people can need. So council will be wrestling with that, because the thing is, if you spend $40 million on a jail, that's $40 million of other stuff that you're not going to be able to do. But you can also wait for the federal government to come in here and tell you to build a $100 million jail.
We don't have any choice at that point.
No, and we don't have any choice right now, really. So council's wrestling with that.
And when they built that jail, they had no thoughts that it was still going to be sitting there unchanged 60 years later.
No, look, when they built the jail, the sheriff had a residence at that jail. That's how far back it goes. I also remember at that time they had the Anderson County Stockade, which is where the Civic Center is. So you had a lot of people there. So, you know, that whole situation has changed for the better. I remember the day that we blew up the Stockade, which was a great day in Anderson County, because there were more drugs coming out of the Stockade than there were any other place in the county. So that's gone, and the Civic Center's taken its place, and we've developed that, and we're out there doing work right now near Dolly Cooper on some parking lot, not Dolly Cooper, but at the Civic Center on some of the parking lots over there. We're also in the process, we've moved the Fireman's Monument, and we're going to put the Fireman's Monument in front of the new courthouse. So we're working on the design on that.
So you're waiting on a timetable on that to get it out there away from the ducks at the fun.
Well, we've already taken that down, because that was an embarrassment and a horrible thing, because if we cleaned it one day, it was filthy the next day. Mm-hmm. It was filthy the next day. So hopefully that's going to go up this year, and I'm pretty sure it will be. Next week I'm going to be talking to several veterans groups about the possibility of moving the Veterans Memorial, which is out where nobody can find it and nobody can see it, to a more prominent place in Anderson County. And I've talked to 3 or 4 veterans groups, and I'll be talking to them next week to see what they want to do.
It's Equinox now, isn't it?
No, well, there's one there.
There's one there,
but there's also one hidden near DSS.
Oh,
and and if I gave you a map, you still couldn't find it.
Right. So kind of get them together, maybe.
The council thinks it needs to be in a more prominent location than where it is. So it's going to be a busy year. Council's wrestling with the jail. Council's wrestling with so many issues, and we have a pretty dedicated group, not pretty, but a real dedicated group of people who do their homework and are looking to find out exactly what we do. We have budget coming up that has to be passed 6 months from today. We have so many.
Let's talk about that. We got 2 new councilmen.
We have 2
and
new
you never
councilmen.
know when you get new council members how they're going to behave and how they're going to approach their idea of government and everything else. But we ended up with 2 that really seem to be pretty dedicated to Anderson County.
Well, you ended up with 2 who do their homework, they study everything, and they devote a whole lot of time and effort, days and nights, to do this job. And I think they're doing a great job, and I think they're really energized, and they bring a lot of new ideas. And like us raising our fees on things on building codes and subdivision regulations, well, fresh eyes, Mr. Sanders, he looked at it and said, I wonder what they're charging everywhere else. And we looked at his request, and then it came up that we were the lowest people in the world. I mean, and so we increased those fees to take the burden off of the taxpayers, the general taxpayers, and the number of complaints we had on that were none. Comments we had was, oh, man, we thought y'all were low. So fresh eyes bring a lot in, and they've kind of meshed seamlessly with everybody that was here. Right. And the existing council members.
That's what I mentioned was Brett Sanders and Jimmy Davis, in case people
Brett Sanders
paying close attention.
in the Pendleton area,
yeah.
81 area, and Jimmy Davis up around the Powdersville, 3 and 20, Piedmont, in that area. And so they're doing a real good job, and so I think that's been really good.
Let's talk about Green Pond. We were talking about parks, and I wanted to get back to Green Pond. Continues to be something that has grown, and also plans are for it to continue to grow, and it's paying off. It's
paying off big time, and that thing I told you about, that Airbnb, that number of putting us number 8 in the country, come on, something's happening. They're not coming to see me and you, I'll promise you that. And I mean, like this weekend, this Saturday, today is the last day of the year, but this Saturday we'll have the striped bass tournament. I think this will be the 4th year they've been here, and there will be 100 boats out there in January fishing. They'll be registering Friday. They'll all come in town. They'll all eat, spend time, spend money, and they'll fish Saturday, and it's just great. But this is January that it's paying off like that. And we've got some huge tournaments coming up in the next year and the next year and a half. And our brand is a fishing destination and fishing capital, continues to grow.
The dock has expanded. That was this year, right?
Primarily not the dock, but parking, handicapped accessibility, right, and some other things.
Bathroom.
The new bathroom out there has been a big hit. And people say, well, all you do is go fish out there. Well, you ought to go out there in the spring and summer and look at the number of people who are just out there.
Great beach just to sit on.
Great beach just to sit on.
In the works.
And hopefully we're going to get the amphitheater out there. Then that leads into another thing. We began work on the dog park. And to date, just from one organization who wishes to remain nameless, we've received $127,000 towards the construction of that. Plus we've received money from other people on that. So we're trying to do a lot of that work in-house during the winter when we can't do a lot of other things.
And the no-kill shelter and the continued rise of Dr. Sanders' reputation around the country has grown this year.
Yes, her reputation has grown nationwide. She's in big demand. Scares us to death because we don't want her to leave. And she's really has helped this whole region. Abbeville, Greenwood, Pickens, those areas directly have benefited from her knowledge and guidance. We have an energized staff and some quality people, and we're also working hand in glove with the Sheriff's Department on animal control, and that's a really big blessing to have that done.
For the first time, I think, in history, I've heard people that went out there to get a cat and there were no cats. They're adopting animals so quickly.
And we're going to continue that. And a lot of innovative things like this year, adopt an older dog. Just all kinds of different promotions to keep that going on. But those are the things. We already know we're going to have a good economic development year because a piece of property's already been purchased by a French company, and we're just waiting to work out some details on that. So that'll be another huge economic development announcement. And we have a lot of industry here that is expanding.
Arthrex started hiring this year.
Arthrex's goal was by this time to have at least 150 people working there on their way to mega growth. First Quality still going gangbusters, and a lot of our Sargent Metal, they're doing real well. A whole lot of our companies. E&I is expanding, an Irish company, switchgear company. We even had the Irish Council General here to celebrate the Irish companies here, and continuing our international training, continuing Anderson County to have more manufacturing jobs than just about anybody else in the state. Not everybody, but we have a high proportion of manufacturing jobs. The new technical high school has opened up a project between 3, 4, and 5, and that's going wonderfully well. And the community supporting that. You got a new president at Tri-County Tech, but Galen was there for a while, so that's been pretty seamless. So there's just a lot of good things that went on last year.
Well, economic development, it's always good to remind people that we do have the most international development in the state of South Carolina.
We do, and we're going to continue that trend.
It's 18 countries, I think, and 51 businesses, something like that.
And that's, like I mentioned, the French, it's going to be another one. So all of that's going well, but there are a lot of challenges on the horizon. Council went and had 8,000 public meetings on what to do about roads, and I think the consensus is to put it on the referendum in next November and let the public decide on do they want to do a penny transportation tax or not. I think you're really beginning to see a lot of the benefits from the gas tax that was passed by the state. We're seeing a lot of benefits from that, and but I had one person who came up here to complain about that with the state. And the road that they rode on had just been repaved with that gas tax money, and I'm going, you don't see it, but I know where you live, and the only way you could have gotten here is to have driven on that brand new road. So we're excited about that.
And that penny, if you look at what the schools have done with their penny sales tax, what they've been able to do and plan ahead, and how the Anderson Institute of Technology might not have been possible without that.
It wouldn't have been possible. But the other thing is, and we always say this, but it's always true, 30 to 35% of that money is going to be paid by people who are just passing through. But that's going to be something we're going to ride on every day. We're also going to continue our close working relationship with towns. We've done several projects with the city of Anderson. I think everything's going wonderfully well. We have a great relationship with them. Pendleton, I know that we do, and we're trying to expand out into other areas. Pelzer, we do a whole lot of work in Pelzer and West Pelzer. We're looking to do some big things in Piedmont. Mr. Davis spearheading that purchase of that land, and you see that there are probably going to be 5,000 homes over there on that river. So that river, after the county beaten for 10 years to say there's a river runs through it right here.
We're going to be talking about this project for a good while.
We're going to be talking about this project for a good while, but I think you're going to see the town of Piedmont, and it straddles both sides. Part of it's in Greenville, part of it's in Anderson. But I think you're going to see a remarkable change up in that part of the world. Powdersville is going to continue to be a situation where we put resources in. We just completed a study on where to put a fueling station up there and the possibility of a sheriff's office substation. So we'll be looking at that study and talking to the people in that area about that. That will allow the sheriff's department to spend more time in Powdersville and not so much time looking for a place to fill up. So we're excited about that.
It reminds us how big our county is.
If you've driven our county, and if you start in Iva and you go all the way to Powdersville, you've got a good hour underneath your belt.
754 square miles, I believe.
It is. We are geographically large, and we're also tuning up for the census. We've already had several meetings on the census because that's a big deal And people say, well, it's the census. Well, you know, it's one of the only things that's in the United States Constitution that every 10 years you're going to do a census. And we don't want, and council's put the resources toward this, we don't want our county undercounted for the simple reason that that means more money for us and more legislative influence and more influence in Washington. And we know we're growing. Our estimates are 204,000. I wouldn't be surprised if we're not low, because as fast as they can build houses, people are moving into those houses.
And people don't realize that money is not going to be saved. It's going somewhere else if our population doesn't get counted properly.
Absolutely. And if you look, and there was an article in the Post and Courier last week, where are people coming from in South Carolina? And it continues to be Ohio, upstate New York. We're seeing people from Illinois. We're seeing people from California. We're seeing people from all over move into South Carolina. And a lot of them are moving to Anderson County. And so they're going to require more services. And they're also bringing in some different perspectives and some interesting ideas. So we've got that going on. But we have
and this summer, council, a lot of these things you're talking about passed a pretty frugal budget, but still was able to try to make these things happen.
Well, I mean, a lot of our recreation stuff, almost all of our recreation stuff, either comes from grant money or it comes from the accommodations tax, which is a tax on hotels. And the more hotels they build here, the more accommodations tax we get. And you know as well as I do that 90% of that accommodations tax money comes from people who don't live in Anderson County. That's almost, in a way, found money. And so we have ambitious plans for next year with that money, more improvements in concert with the city out at the Civic Center. So we've got that going. We know right now that if we had 4 more soccer fields, they would be used tomorrow. If we had 4 more baseball fields, we know they would be used tomorrow. Things we didn't think about 2 years ago. Now we have a huge pickleball contingent, and they're very vocal. And everybody's beginning to play pickleball, so we've got that going, and we need to accommodate that because that's senior recreation primarily, and that's a booming business, and it's also a good business and a good thing for Anderson to keep people more active and physically moving around. So there are a whole lot of good things going on in Anderson County.
And trying to get these things going without raising taxes is what we're talking about.
And trying to do it without raising taxes. And we haven't raised taxes. And have we benefited from some of the growth? Yes. But then you get situations like building this jail, and I've said this before, nobody gets reelected building a jail. This is one of the hard things elected officials get to play with. You say, well, boy, y'all just have a wonderful time. No, it's not a wonderful time planning on a jail. Thursday and Friday, we're going to be sending groups to visit other prisons and jails in South Carolina and in Georgia. So we're trying to do this exactly right and make sure the council has all the information they need to do that, because they ultimately have to make decisions like they have to make a decision on everything. And with a growing county, there are a lot of hard things to do, and you got to pay for these things.
The services increase when the population increases.
It increases. Then people say, well, you know, you really ought to take your foot off the gas. Well, you can't take your foot off. You're either growing or you're dying. You can't stop. And there have been cases where communities have said, we're stopping. And whenever you stop, they say, okie doke, then you start trickling back. It's just like your body, you know? You're growing. It's almost biological. And I'd rather be Anderson County than some of the counties, less fortunate counties in the lower part of the state are looking for anything to come down there to nail things together and send. So I'd rather be in our situation.
We also were the first county, we got new voting machines for this year's. We were the first county to buy the extra level security to protect those voting machines.
And as we've talked earlier, I've never trusted electronic voting machines. I've never trusted them. And lots of people all around the country are beginning to believe that you can't trust them. So now we have electronic voting machines with a paper backup, which I think is much more secure. Because in the past on an electronic voting machine, you want to do a recount, what do? You hit the same button? And you tell me that people can't tamper with electronic voting machines? Well, there's some 10-year-old kids who can tamper with that. So I think this is much better. And we had municipal elections that went off without a hitch. And we've been meeting with the Registration and Elections Commission to get ready for the November elections and the primaries. So we're going to have to be coordinating a lot of things because those machines weigh a whole lot. But I'm very proud that we're one of the first in the state to do that.
And Katie and her staff have been recognized and honored for their good work, and she's been elected to lead sort of the elections folks in the state. So.
Yep. And they try to stay on top of everything. They have a very good staff. They have a good board, and everything's been going real well there. And, you know, in the past, we've had some chaotic elections in Anderson County. We've even had fraud in elections in Anderson County where people were invited to go spend time in prison.
Yeah, you and I both remember that.
Yes, we both remember that. So I much prefer this than to the old days.
And speaking of honors and awards, our library got honored again. Our librarian, Faithline Hall of Fame, and then we got Librarian of the Year with Annie Sutton.
And Annie Sutton got Librarian of the Year, and the dynamic and incredible Faith was honored by going into the Hall of Fame. And we had a wonderful lady who just retired as the assistant director. And Annie Sutton, who's worked there for some time, she's now going to be the assistant library director. But they continue to honor us by what they do at our library. And if you haven't been to the library, or if you don't know what the library does, then you're crazy. And if somebody tells you that libraries are outdated and you can do it all on your phone, well, they haven't been to our library where we can actually help you try to find a job, or we find something for your kids to do, or we have this class here, or we're providing this space for people over here, and we're doing it all over the county and trying to be dynamic about it. And we're bringing in speakers, we're bringing in poets, and we're doing those things. So it's a dynamic, living part of the community, cultural institution, and it helps our mental health and it raises our IQ levels. So can't say enough about the job they do.
And it also, if you just want to use your phone, you can listen to books or check out books on your phone without leaving your house.
From the library.
From the library, not spend a penny.
Not spend a penny. So it's the best deal in town. The very best deal in town. But we've talked about a lot of the good stuff, but we have...
You mentioned mental health too, and then we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. That was one of the big initiatives at the jail this year.
Mental health evaluation is started, and now we're trying to establish a mental health court, which we desperately need.
We have a drug court.
We have a drug court, but we need a mental health court, and we have received some grant monies from various and sundry people. And if you look at a jail population, any jail population, a whole lot of those people are there because they have mental health issues. And a whole lot of people that you see at emergency rooms are there because they have mental health issues. So we're going to have to address that. What we can directly do is help establish a mental health court and the mental health evaluations that we're doing of our prisoners and working along those lines, plus our effort to help people when they get out of jail find a job, which is in its embryonic stage, but it's working. We're going to have failures along that. Yes, we are, because we're dealing with humans. So you always do have failures. So we've got that going on. Another thing that we did last year that I'm very proud of is we reestablished the senior feeding program throughout the county. We now have a location at St. Paul's Church here in Anderson. We have a location in Iva. We have one in Honeypath. We have one in Belton. We have one in Williamston, and we're about to start one in conjunction with New Holly Light up in Pendleton around Wild Hog Road. And that not only provides a meal, but also provides recreational opportunities. And so we're very proud that that's taking place. And we were COG almost said, would y'all please, this is not working, would y'all do it? And council said, yes, we'll be happy to do it. And that's been very successful. And that program's growing.
And the councilmen have also continued to be supportive of AIM and Meals on Wheels and Clean Start and the Soup Kitchen and all the other charities that are
in the Salvation Army and the free clinic and things like that.
Yep.
And so council's been very supportive of that, all of those activities. And they get a lot of requests for a whole lot of things.
People take that for granted, but a lot of communities don't have groups like this that work together. I've talked to them about other counties where they're fighting for money rather than working together.
Well, we're pretty lucky on a lot of ways that we work hand in glove with our delegation, which you don't find in a lot of counties. And a lot of our nonprofits, we have very good relationships with them, and we're happy about that.
And they do with each other.
And they do with each other, and like you said, in some places it's war, outright war.
And the Salvation Army did expand this year.
They did expand, but one of the things that we're going to have to be even more worried about is our homeless population. And we have worked with the Salvation Army to provide monies to provide beds, and that's something that we're going to continue to look at. We're also very happy that we noticed that the homeless population in schools had gone down somewhat. I attribute that to the economy, where most anybody right now can get a really nice job if you want to, not not a job just so you can just live and can't afford a house or a car.
But at the same time, the Salvation Army and AIM all had record requests for help this Christmas, so there's still a big growing need.
There's still a big growing need.
It's just the economics of scale. If we're over 200,000, even if it's just the percentage remains close to the same, there's more people. But that leads to that next thing. Our unemployment rate hit record lows this year in the county.
It hit record lows, and we came out of the recession, as I've told you, and people are sick of me saying that, one of the 10 counties to come out of the recession quicker than anybody else. So we came out with a head of steam, and we haven't let our foot off the gas. Our council won't let us stop. And, you think that, everything's good and everybody's got a job, then Plastic Omnium says that they're going to relocate. Well, even that's even interesting, because now we don't think Plastic Omnium's going to relocate. But you never know when, like Wells Aluminum, Hedro in Belton, a solid employer for many, many years, you don't know when that's going to close down. So you better make sure you have a whole lot of jobs in the pipeline to take care of those people. The county put on a job fair for the employees at Hedro. Arthrex was there. First Quality was there. All of these companies that have come in here, Michelin, they were there to offer those people jobs and sign up that day, not to start the process. Because you got somebody who's worked somewhere 15 or 20 years. That's the kind of person you want to hire, because you already know they show up for work. So it was an interesting last year. It's going to be a very dynamic year this year, with so much to do and so much for council to consider. And they're probably going to have to meet 100 times. The airport, we're looking for a new airport manager, but possibly doing some other things. Opening the terminal will happen this year, but it's been under construction. And we finished the huge runway expansion. And now we're getting increased requests for people wanting to build hangars, or for the county to build hangars. And so there are a lot of things, and there's an ad hoc committee started to handle that. Mr. Sanders is the chairman of that, to really see what the next step for the airport is to take it, because we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's going to require some very close attention.
Got final approval for the walking trail that will stretch across all the way to the Civic Center from ANMED.
Yeah, and like I said a couple of weeks ago, they're still in the right-of-way phase, and I talked with the city manager, and they're moving out smartly on the trails in the city, which I'm just as excited about, because that's going to tie into all these other trails, and it's really going to be nice for Anderson County.
People will be able to bike and walk from all over, pretty much anywhere to, and that trail that's from the YMCA will actually help the schools and everything, and those new subdivisions that are going to be built out there to be able to connect to.
All of that's going to be there, and I think that's what the future is. That's what people want. That's what people want to see. So. And
we ended the year with something else people want to see, a bigger Christmas tree.
Yep, and unfortunately, Christmas is over.
Yeah.
And the Christmas tree is 41.5 feet tall. The one at Rockefeller Center is 71 feet tall. But when we take the Christmas tree down this year, we will put it back in the electric fertilizer. And we expect it to grow just a little bit more next year.
Will you and I live long enough to see it top the Rockefeller Plaza thing?
I hope so. There's a lot of stuff to get done around here.
Well, and that's the final thing is, you've done 10 years here now. Did you see this kind of growth when you started your job here at the county?
You always remember I was here before.
Well, I know you were here before, but I'm just talking about this stretch that started with the recession, and then.
I've always believed that Anderson County was unique, and I'm sure everybody in every county thinks their county's unique, but I happen to know Anderson County's unique. I mean, because where we are and what we have and what our climate is. I was talking to somebody from Arizona the other day. I moved to Anderson because of the climate, and I said, please explain that to me. They said, well, that stuff about Arizona having great climate? He said, that's not true. He said, this is where the best climate is. So we've always been a diamond in the rough, but we're getting polished. And I see nothing but great things for Anderson County. And council always wants it to be the best, the most innovative. and the most dynamic, and I think they're going to continue pushing and make their dreams come true.
And one of the things, we'll wrap it up with this, one of the things that was put out this year that could actually help the part of the county that's grown a little slower is the high-speed rail. If that becomes a reality in the future, suddenly the southern part of the county is opened up.
I think that will be awesome, and I think that's going to be something that's going to happen. It may take 5, it may take 6, it may take 7 or 10 years, but to be able to leave Atlanta, be in Anderson in an hour, and be in Charlotte in an hour, I think that would open up a whole lot of opportunities. And the thing that we wanted more than anything was a stop in Anderson. I don't want to go somewhere and get on it. I want it in Anderson.
And 2020 is looking bright.
Yeah, and you need to keep your eye up on Clemson Boulevard and Interstate 85, because I think you're fixing to have a mega explosion right there. A mega explosion of growth.
And the challenges again come with being ready for that.
But the council voted to allow us to do the sewer 2 years ago, so we're in the process of putting that sewer in, so we're ahead of that challenge.
After a 25-year wait.
After a 25-year wait, but this council didn't wait, so we're going to be ready.
So that's the key for 2020, we're going to be ready.
We're going to be ready.